Revved Up Sports Show with Bobby Chaffee.
We do have this nice little format that we try to follow every week. We don't usually follow it.
And Rodney Rodriguez.
Entertain me. Tell me something. I need to know something other than what I'm seeing.
Y'all ready? Right, here we go. Here's Bobby and Rodney.
Hello, friends. Hashtag Real Race Talk on a Monday. Showtime. Bobby Chaffee, Rodney Rodriguez on a hot 103 degrees happening right about now as we are at the Revved Up studio in Round Rock. Great program coming up. We are celebrating the life and times of the great Alvin Stewart. Special guest, 6:45. Hang around. You don't want to miss that. And yes, Robert Chaffee, we will be doing call-ins.
That ought to be fun.
You people, don't show your ass. No, I mean, I know people won't. Oh, whoa. Did you see that?
No.
Dude, where? Oh, my God. You missed it. Somebody actually showed their ass. It's awesome.
Damn.
Good stuff there. Good
Need
stuff.
to not pay so much attention to the computer.
Well, that's okay. We got to make sure everything's happening right there. But so we're gonna, and this is gonna be a fun show. I mean, obviously, it's not a fun time because we've lost just a great one. You know, with Alvin. But we'll dig into that. 6:45, we're going to have some great discussion. I do want to give a couple of shout-outs here before we get too deep into this. I think that one of the things I want to talk about that big race there at Arklatex, with the factory stocks, 5,000 to win. You had a lot of people that showed up for that race, and you had a lot of the best in the business, and it was all, I mean, seriously, with all of that, all of those cards right there, Mr. Whitehead there, he put on one damn fantastic show right there. That was some good stuff.
Yeah, there was a lot of good racing up there this weekend. I still don't know if it's a great idea to have those big races back to back because now you got the Battle of Boot Hill coming up, and I just don't know. Or is that this weekend or Boot Hill next weekend?
Hell, I don't know.
I don't know.
We're celebrating Alvin. I'm having a cold beer.
Well, that's good.
Well, that's like, do we celebrate him every week? I was waiting for you to say that, but yeah, that is tough when you start stacking them up. And I mean, that's the one thing that is crazy about Texas is, and with all of that, with Arklatex and everything, that it's a lot of space. I mean, and a lot of money to do that, but it's a lot. I mean, Cody Myers wins over Craig Persley, and those guys were going at it. I mean, towards the end of that thing, man, that was a really good finish. It's just $5,000 on the line right there, and it looked like they were racing for about $20,000.
Well, I mean, for that class, $5,000 is about $20,000. That was the best payday in dirt racing around here. That's not a super late model.
Yeah, really good stuff. Good stuff there. As all of that came to pass, got to give some love to Dean Abbey as he wins at Rocket Raceway Park there in the American Crate Late Model Series. Man, I get confused on all the series. There's a lot of series. There's a lot of dirt series, but tell you one thing, they're all very popular and they're all very full of campaigners, and Dean Abbey right there doing it to it. And hey, by the way, we do want to welcome in when we talk about
Dean Abbey. How about that?
How about that? How about we talk about a little bit of CRS suspension? Welcome to the Revved Up Sports Show. That right there, we'll need to talk to Jeffrey here pretty soon. But welcome aboard, a great partner right there. Now that you guys, you could be a partner too.
That's right. We make an advertising plan that works for you on a budget that works for you too. You'd actually be pretty surprised. Just hit up either Rodney or myself, or even our buddy Phil Whipple will put up a really good deal for you.
Yeah, hit him up because he's better at that. He's better at that. He's a good salesman. He's a good dude. He's a good dude. And thanks to Phil for putting all of that together. Also got to give a lot of love out to the showstopper Jake Wright as they make their way over to Tucson, Arizona, out to the desert. Those guys go out and second place in the first double feature right there. They come out and they wax their asses they wax their asses from Waxahachie. That's what they had to put on that truck next. We'll wax your ass from Waxahachie.
I wonder how bad the announcer butchered Waxahachie.
Bruce will have to tell us that. Bruce will have to tell us for that, how that may have worked out. But good for them. They take the road trip right there and do some really good stuff right there. And congratulations to those folks. Before we dive, Bobby, before we get our first guest coming up in about 6 or 7 minutes, I want to talk about this whole madhouse thing. You and I were talking about it. We were on the same wavelength. Look, Yeah, it's entertaining. Whatever. That's great. But I mean, seriously, as somebody, I deeply care about this sport. Man, that makes us look stupid. I mean, if you want to do that shit, have a demo derby.
That's right. Get you a demo derby car. I mean, but that's the mentality of the Madhouse. That's what's so crazy about it.
Pisses me off.
I would never, ever want to race at the Madhouse just strictly because contact happens, and especially on a little bitty track like that that's flat as hell and, literally a quarter mile around. You touch somebody just the slightest little bit, and boom, they just want to come in and wreck your car or whoop your ass.
I'd be in trouble if I went there because if I went there and started watching stuff, and the place is full, and I mean, obviously they're doing what they want to do. It's a black eye on our sport, guys. I mean, because it's so weird to me that I see so many people, especially on Twitter, which you can follow us at RevvedUpATX on Twitter, and of course he's at Bobby Chaffee. I'm at the Rodney R. Boom. We're hitting them all tonight.
Damn, it's almost like we're on the FM station today.
It's so many people that want to piss and moan when you have something happening in a NASCAR race about, oh, my God, this guy's out there using Ross Chastain. Yeah, out there using this guy up. And, Joey Logano runs somebody over, and they're ready to bury this guy. But then you want to condone that? And I mean, to me, that it really is. It's a black eye, man. And it'd be one thing if this was in the patrol class or whatever we're calling the grand stocks that are racing all around the country right now. But that
cop stocks,
cop stocks. But I mean, you're doing that cock stops.
Cop.
Oh,
cop.
Citizen
Zone Patrol.
Got it. But I mean, seriously, what is that? It's ridiculous. I mean,
it's just stupid.
I don't condone it at all. I mean, and people want to bitch and complain about what racing costs. Sorry to all the new folks that are checking in here, want to be a part of Alvin's thing that are like, man, these guys are out here shouting obscenities, drinking beer. But
one of us is shouting the obscenities.
I'm sorry. That is not a good look, and I don't see why people go ape shit over this stuff.
It's a Madhouse thing. Like, you either love it or you hate it. I still think it's a dumbass thing. I think it makes the sport look bad. And you see every single angle of it. Now, the one thing that I did like about that whole thing, I love the flagman going up there and trying to beat that guy's ass.
That's the stuff we'd have seen at Longhorn Speedway. When things would have got out of control, as we're about to honor Alvin Stewart tonight, if that would have happened at Longhorn Speedway, Calvin Gustafson or whoever would have been in the flag stand, Bill Lay, whoever it would have been, would have got out of the flag stand and gone and beat these guys up. I mean, there was no need for that. But think about this. We can correlate this to Speedorama because we did have these kind of activities back then, or Longhorn, whatever. But it never got to this.
No, never got that bad.
It never
got that bad down in Corpus.
No, and I mean, so much of this, I get that Bowman Gray. Yeah, I totally get it. And Bowman Gray's been glorified with everything. This TV exposure never hurts. I mean, we talk about Formula One all the time with Netflix and all that. But, I mean, to see these guys doing this, I'm over it, man. It doesn't need to be. People glorify it. It's not something to celebrate. I mean, we don't want to be called a redneck sport, but when we do that, dude, I'm calling us a redneck sport.
It takes us back to the Stone Age, as hard as it is to try to get people to, but I think that becomes the difference where you try to explain the difference between the Cup stuff and then high-end NASCAR stuff and I don't want to say low-end local stuff, but I mean, you don't see that kind of shit on Sundays.
No, absolutely not. And you don't see it at a lot of regular dirt or regular weekly tracks. I mean, that doesn't happen. You get guys that get crossed up, and we've all been there. I mean, you get mad, and like everybody's waiting for the Chastain and Denny Hamlin and all this thing to come to par. I mean, whatever the case right there, but to do that right there, and a lot of this is, I think that with that happening, the more aggressive driver and all of that knew that you were going to get a pop. You're going to get a pop. It's a Twitter phase. It's a Twitter, whatever it is. And we tweet the hell out of stuff, but it's just not a good look for our sport. And I'm taken aback every time when I see this, and it's like people are saying, this is unbelievable. I'm like, yeah, it's unbelievable. It's unbelievably stupid is what it is. And
absolutely.
I don't know. I don't know. I don't get it, dude. I just don't get it.
It's it's typical for the Madhouse, but it's not so stereotypical for racing. I think not nowadays, because the cars they were tearing up were not cheap cars. That looked like that was a late model class, or maybe a high-end street stock class, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, that was legit. I mean, they tore them up. They tore them up. And the whole thing is, Bobby, it's one thing if you're gonna get mad, you're gonna go show your aggression at somebody. If you're gonna do it, that's fine. Go rub up on them. Go flip them the finger or whatever. I mean, whatever you're gonna do.
Mm-hmm.
God, I hope they don't turn this video off because of what I just did. But whatever you're gonna do that and leave it. Leave it. Leave it at that.
Mm-hmm.
The rest of the stuff, go outside the gate. Go outside that pit gate and handle it there. Or, be the more rational thing and make a phone call. But
they ain't making no phone calls at that.
They ain't making no phone calls.
They ain't making no phone calls at Bowman Gray.
But it's just, I'm over it, dude. I'm tired of it. I see so many people saying that, Bowman Gray, it's so great because it puts eyeballs on the sport. Yeah, it puts eyeballs on the sport for incidents like that, not because of a great side-by-side duel. We had a great truck race at Mobile this past weekend, and that's the eyeballs you want when you have a great race and you have guys like Jerry Goff and Stephen Davis that are talking about, we're going at it, whatever. And I'm just talking about what I saw this weekend. That's the kind of eyeballs you want. You don't want eyeballs on because it's on major media because these guys are out there acting like fools. That's not the eyeballs that you want.
That's not the right way to get the message.
That's not the mainstream that you want.
Yeah, it's definitely not the right way to get the message, to hit the mainstream, hit the masses. It's just, I don't know. I mean, that's why it's so hard to try to watch the races. For me, I mean, I love Dillner and I love Jacqueline and I love the effort they put forth with Flow Racing trying to do the broadcast there from Bowman Gray. But it's that killer instinct mentality at Bowman Gray that sometimes makes it hard to watch.
Yeah. Yeah. And the thing is, it's like the people that tune into that. The people that tune into that, they tune in for that. Kind of bringing this back to Longhorn and Speedorama. I mean, just think about this. If we had live streaming and all of this stuff back in the late 80s, the mid 80s, early 90s, if we had that back then, imagine the numbers of people that would have tuned in that couldn't get to Austin that would have tuned in to watch that, 30-car super stock field, 30-car street stock field.
Just wish we had better. Nothing against the tapes you have downstairs. I just wish we had better view other than sitting down there in turn one.
Yeah, that's the whole thing there. Where I've had a lot of folks that have talked to me about that. It's like, why don't you? I mean, for various reasons. I mean, get that stuff, put them on discs and all that. I mean, that'd be great to do, but it's not going to change the view up a lot. I mean, I still got VCRs around here. I mean, you see all the junk that I got. I mean, I've got stuff everywhere, but that would have been the stuff that caliber of racing. If you really want to talk about a bull ring, just to pull this all together, if you really want to talk about a bull ring where you had all of the excitement, all of the competition, all of the personalities that you had at the time.
Mm-hmm.
If you remember back in the days of Longhorn, and I mean, Upchuck Clark is one that I think about. I mean, he won some feature races, but that dude was like one of the biggest stars of the racetrack. But hell, he didn't win every week. Mm-hmm. And people love to see that guy. That's the stuff that you want to do. I mean, the Longhorn would have been the bull ring to stream and do all that stuff. But again, like with so many things back in those days, it was just so far ahead of its time that I don't know. I just wish we could go back and recapture all of that stuff.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's the best way to try to do it is just, it makes you think of all the stuff you missed. Think about some of the old TIDA races, even some of the old Corpus races. That's the one that got away, the original Texas Stock Car Spectacular. That's the one that I wanted to see in a newer format. We can watch it on YouTube, but the audio quality's not good. You can't even hear our good buddy Chuck Licata. I mean, we could try to find a way to voice over it because we knew who everybody was back then.
We ought to just redo that race and we recall it. How about that?
That'd be fun.
We can just watch it on the screen over here and we'll just recall the race. I think that's what we ought to do. We can make it more modern. That'd be a good thing. We're going to the hotline right now, and this is very special because we obviously this is a night to talk about. I mean, seriously, this is the man that saved racing in Austin, Texas, and I know we don't have it now, but had it not been for Alvin that we're celebrating tonight, it'd have been gone a long damn time ago, way back a long time ago. And I am super privileged and happy to say that calling in tonight is it's Robert Stewart. Robert, man, thanks for being a part of this, sir.
Man, I'm glad to be a part of it, Rodney. Y'all are all family. Man, the racing community is just a blessing to me. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah. So Robert, let's dig into it just kind of from the get-go. I mean, to have Alvin just talk about Alvin as your dad. I mean, we can talk about all the racing stuff later, but
man, you're gonna make me cry.
Oh shit! I didn't plan to do it this early, but
I'm probably gonna do it 2 or 3 times. It's okay.
It's all good, dude. It is all good.
Man, I tell you what, man, having Alvin as my dad, it was just amazing. You know, I mean, it wasn't always easy. You know, he instilled in us hard work ethic, and we also played hard. You know, so you know, back when we was in school, you know, we had to get good grades or we get our ass busted. You know, or we got grounded for 6 weeks until the next report card come out. You know, it was not always fun. I wasn't the best student, but man, we did have a good time. You know, we had race cars out in the shop, and got our homework done, and we could go play on race cars and step on hot metal and get metal in our eyes from the grinding, and you know, whatever we wanted to do. Mm-hmm. You know, we had so much fun back in the day. It was just incredible to have him as a dad. You know, when he wasn't busting our asses.
No doubt. No doubt.
So Robert, how long did it take you to get in the family business? How old were you when you started racing them cars? Did you have to beg Alvin to let you race one of them cars, or was it pretty much known that you were going to get behind the wheel of one of them?
It was pretty much known I was just going to get behind the wheel of one at some point. Yeah, I begged him to drive his cars, you know, from the time I was, I don't know, maybe 10 years old. And he always just told me, no, you know, you're just going to tear up my stuff. And I'm like, I think you do a pretty good job of it by yourself. I might do better at it and not tearing up. But no, I mean, I drove a couple of his late models, and, you know, if you want to call it that, back in the day, limited late models. But no, I started out in street stock, and I, you know, drove my first basically street stock at Longhorn in somewhere around, I don't know, 93, 94, 95, something like that. And that's how I started, man. I had to build my first car, or buy my first car, and it wasn't much, you know. It was just something to go play with and be involved with my dad and my mom and family and all my friends. You know, it was a great time, you know.
Yeah. And I mean, talk about that, Robert, because that really is the thing with the Austin scene. I mean, I texted you earlier and I said, you know, when we talk about family, I'm like, man, I spent more time with your family and the Wallaces and hell the Rodriguezes. I mean, for crying out loud. I mean, I'd see my regular family on Sunday for lunch, but hell, I'd see y'all all during the week. I mean, just talk about how impactful that is. I mean, because in my opinion, you guys are the benchmark. Y'all's family, y'all are the benchmark of Austin racing and have been for the longest time.
Man, I really appreciate the kind words. You know, I didn't have much to do with that. You know, it was mostly just my dad, you know, and it's tough, man, because, you know, back in the day when we were young and he was so involved in racing, and, you know, back then, not a lot of people made a lot of money.
Yeah.
He was, you know, when he first started, he drove for Yellow Freight Airlines, you know, or Yellow Freight Lines, I guess is what they call it now. I don't know, Red Arrow. But he was just driving a truck and wanted to race cars. And then so he started doing the whole race car thing, and then the racetrack, promoting racing, and you know, but it was expensive. Mm-hmm. And so he always wanted to try to make it affordable for everyone, make it reachable for the guys that, you know, wanted to race and didn't have a lot of money.
Yeah.
And, you know, as you know, he, you know, started the Capital Area Racing Association with, you know, some other great guys. And, you know, the whole purpose was to try to keep it affordable, make the rules where the rules don't change a lot. And there's not a lot of expensive parts. And, you know, just like I said, just make it reachable for the average guy. And, man, it just turned into a big, huge family affair, you know, with the Wallaces and the Rodriguezes and Steve Smith or Steve Sims, excuse me, Steve. And I'm not all together today.
No.
You know, it's been a pretty tough week, but
sure.
You know, it's just I'm just glad he got involved. Honestly, I don't think racing would be where it's at. I don't know if Central Texas would have ever been there if it wasn't for Longhorn Speedway and it doing so well back in the day. I'm glad that it was there, and he made it good, and we were able to keep racing all these years. So, I appreciate that, and I just miss the heck out of him right now.
Yep.
So, Robert, the one thing I loved about your dad was that even as a kid growing up and going to Longhorn, years ago, is that he did a little bit of everything. I saw him teching a few cars. I saw him being a flag man a time or two. I remember being up in the announcing booth when none of the announcers were there. He did just a little bit of everything at that racetrack, and I think it showed that and had his fingerprints all over that place.
Let me tell you a little bit about that.
Nice.
So, I built my first car, and I didn't, really know what I was doing. I don't think I know what I'm doing now. But speaking of teching, I raced my first race at Longhorn Speedway, and I won the heat race. And, back in the day, I didn't have any money. I just put wheels on it from the junkyard or whatever I could get, and I got disqualified from the heat race. And I didn't have – so I think we had to run 8-inch wheels all the way around back then, and steel wheels or whatever they were. Excuse me. And I had a 7-inch wheel on the left front. I'll never forget. I was like, Dad, come on, it's smaller. And but anyway, I got disqualified for that from my own dad, And so he did. He had his hands in all of it. It's not the only time he disqualified me, but it's one of the times.
Yeah, that's right. And one of the things that I've talked about, since Alvin passed is you mentioned it, the CARA. I mean, that thing right there. I mean, when you think about this, just not only with forming that, but I mean, seriously, Robert, that we were young kids back then, and we didn't know each other back then. But we can go back and we can go back and look at these memories now. That place, Friday nights, and then became Saturday. That was a place to be. You didn't even have to be a race fan. I mean, the food was good with Sam Hill's stuff. The beer was the coldest that I've ever had. I can tell you that.
Yeah,
and
nice cold beer, man. Miller Lite, Budweiser,
MGD. I mean,
oh yeah.
The signs in your garage
parking,
to prove
man.
it. Yeah.
The parking was crazy.
Oh.
They were all the way down to where Luther's place was down there on 183. Walking all the way up to the track. I mean, it was insane.
Yeah,
they did a fantastic job. Everybody that was involved in that.
But just with that, I mean, he did so much on the track. Racing. Way back when he started. But when he did that, I mean, it was so. Isn't it cool for you now to look back at it? And I'm sure. I mean, obviously now that he's gone, you're going to look back at it, but. Just thinking about all that, he was like so far ahead of his time with the shit he was doing back then, man. It was like promoters now struggling. It's like, man, Alvin was doing this way back when.
Yeah, way back, and before social media, and everybody had
that's right.
all these comments they post online and stuff. But yeah, I mean, at the time back then, when I was a kid and a young adult, I didn't think he was Superman. I was just thinking he's just dad doing his thing. We'd work all summer long or all year long, all week long, busting our ass out on doing manual labor, and then he'd come home at night and do all the racetrack stuff and be on the phone with Trooper and everybody that was involved. And man, I just like, man, he just never stopped, man. And then he's up at 4 o'clock in the morning beating on my bedroom door, trying to get me up, want me to go back to work. And I'm like, dude, I'm still sleeping. Get out of here. But yes, he was ahead of his time. I mean, he just had great ideas, and it wasn't all on his own, but he had to implement all that stuff. And man, he just the beer, dollar beer, whatever it was back then,
dude.
And it brought in the crowd. We were putting it on ice on Thursdays, and I was unloading beer trucks, and making sure the ice was on it. And what's his name? Sam, I guess it was, that ran the concession stand. Not Sam Hill, but the other one.
Oh, Sammy. Yeah. Sammy. Yeah.
Oh, he was up there barbecuing, and I miss that guy too, man. And actually, I talked to his son at Sam Hill's funeral.
Yeah.
But
it's funny, Robert, that you say that. It's funny that you say that, and people won't be able to see it. I'm showing it on our pit crew cam right now, but I got a picture right here of Sammy. He's in the concession stand. I'm not sure what he's doing. I think he's washing his hands or something right there, but he's in the middle. He's in the middle right there getting ready to do his thing, man. That dude
was beast, man.
Dude, man.
I mean, not only was it, I mean, he was, I don't know how old he was back then, because we weren't very old, and I assumed he was old, but he wasn't.
Yeah.
And that guy's arms were as big as my head.
Dude.
And when he told me to go unload a beer truck, I'm going to unload that beer truck, That dude was crazy. I mean, I love that guy. I love everybody, but, man, some people just leave an impression on you, and that guy was out there Thursday, Friday with his barbecue pit and putting up the tent and just working his butt off.
Absolutely.
So when I think back about as a kid with Longhorn and different stuff like that, there was a couple of people that really made the impact in the community to bring that racing community together. One of them was Jimmy Spiller, because he always did the Spiller Custom Car and Hot Rod Show. And your dad always had either some type of Longhorn car out there. There occasionally he'd do $5 pictures in front of his super late model. That yellow and white number 63 that I think him and Parrott had. So, I mean, I think that the whole community always got together, especially around the hot rod, the Spiller Custom Hitches Hot Rod Show. And it came through, and I think it showed because you had gearheads that wouldn't necessarily normally be thinking about going to roundy round stuff. They'd see the race car. They see Jimmy's race cars up on the stage. They'd see your dad's car on the floor, and they'd see all the other local race cars. Granted, they were some of them a little fancier than some of the other Longhorn machines, but I mean, it put the racetrack on notice to the city, and that's what drew people out to the races in groves.
It did, man. It made such a huge impact. Doing those shows and the car shows, and Jimmy Spiller and Kerry James and all those Spiller, even David Umshide, they played such a big role in that. My dad, and hate to say it, but Lisa did too. Marianne. I mean, just so many people were involved, and the giving out the passes to Motorola.
That was crazy. Yeah.
We give out, and I'm going to say 250 to 500 passes a night. And you're losing out on the gate fee, but you're making it back in concessions and that ice cold beer.
Man, and I got to tell you, Robert, back in the heyday, once CTS, once all that kind of set itself, whatever, Tim Self would come to me and hand me a stack of tickets. He's like, just go give these to anybody, get them in there, let's sell them some beer. that was really the thing.
It's eye opener, man, because people don't know the racetracks are there.
Yeah.
I mean, look where Cotton Bowl's out. I mean, it's a great facility, but it's kind of far out from Austin and far from College Station or anywhere. It's just people don't know it's there, so you got to get the word out, and that's one of the ways back in the day before my dad. He was ahead of his time. Yeah. Giving that stuff away and getting people in there, and there was standing room only, and people standing at the fence trying to watch, in turn 3 and 4, we're having to run people off,
Yeah.
It's and you didn't want to go hit that fence when the guardrail's down there and those rotted posts and knock somebody out in the field, because I was the one out there in the middle of the week, somebody knocked the guardrail down, and it might have been myself, but then I'm out there trying to dig new holes and put new posts in and put a new guardrail up.
Yeah, no doubt. So Robert, I mean, let's talk about the times. I mean, because everything CARA. I mean, everything, and it was a lot of guys. You mentioned Trooper. I mean, you had Larry Houston. I mean, there were all these guys that did all of this. But you had Stand On It Productions. I keep mentioning that, and then Alvin takes the lease, and that's really when the heyday came, as we got into the 90s. And then, you remember back when we were racing. I mean, it's so funny now when we watch the races, you see the programs and there's all these classes. We would go out there with 3 classes and a special class, a touring class, whatever it was.
Yeah.
And dude.
TIDA or somebody.
TIDA, dwarf car, whatever it was. Dude, that place was rocking and rolling. I mean, did Alvin ever talk? Was it at the end of the night that he was like, "That's kick ass"? Was there emotion there with what he was putting together?
He was very happy, and it's just his hard work, just showing. It just shows what hard work pays off. What like he instilled in us when we were kids. But yes, he was very emotional, and whether it be. He's angry because we didn't make any money. I say we, it was him, not me.
Yeah.
And or when the night was great and they made a lot of money. It's just he was very ecstatic on Sunday afternoon when, he got up from a long night of teching cars and listened to everybody complain that they got disqualified for a 7-inch wheel or what it might have been. But yeah, I mean, he put a lot of effort into it, and he took pleasure in seeing it succeed.
Yeah, no doubt.
Well, see, I remember all the fun stuff on the racetrack, but I remember the old softball games at City Park.
Oh,
that was a hell of a lot of fun, man. I mean, I couldn't drink beer because I was too young, but man,
banquets.
That was a lot of fun.
Man, somebody mentioned to me on Saturday about that. I had, I'll talk a little bit more. I mean, I had so many people come to me on Saturday, and I think I cried, 60, 70 times on Saturday. But
sure.
Somebody brought up the banquets and the softball tournaments and how much fun it was on City Park down there. And, man, it was just camping out for the whole weekend and game after game after game. And I get to see my dad in his little bitty shorts, and I'm not really digging it, but, he's having a blast. And John Tolley was out there.
Oh, Tolley.
Biller, Harry James. I mean, countless people. The ECs and the Rodriguez. I mean, Sims and all of them, man. It was so much fun.
Man. Isn't that, doesn't it take us sometimes, something like this? Obviously, this is it sucks. And again, thank you for doing this, man. But sometimes when something like this happens, and I correlated this on the Racing America show, when I was talking about when people were bitching about no more asphalt racing in Texas, and I'm like, you think this is bad? We had a guy that saved it way back when it wasn't even savable. And I mean,
in the 90s,
in the
80s and 90s.
Yeah. I mean, isn't it funny how it, man, you look back, and to me, that's where I've really appreciated Alvin and you guys even more now, because it's like, y'all saved that way back then. This right here, this ain't shit.
I appreciate you saying y'all.
Well,
I just did but it's a group of those guys, man. They just had it in their heart, and they wanted to keep it affordable and just keep racing alive.
Yeah.
It's just, I hate to see, honestly, that the way asphalt is being treated now and where it's ultimately heading, I think. I just don't know. I don't think anybody really knows.
Yeah.
But we all grew up on asphalt, and we hate to see that it's, dying, if to lack of a better word. But,
sure,
man, I hate to see it. Times are changing in the economy and everything. It's just so expensive to build cars. And I don't know where I'm going with this story, but I'm just kind of rambling.
Yeah, no.
But
no,
I just hate to see it, I guess I say, the way asphalt is after the hard work that, tons and tons of people put in, from Austin Speed-O-Rama to Longhorn Days to CTS to, HMP, all those people put in hours and hours and hours and hours of work and get their asses chewed out every week by racers and by employees and people that don't appreciate the hard work. It's not a job that I would go apply for. I can tell you that. Mm-hmm. It's not something I would want to do myself.
Right.
It's a thankless job sometimes. It really is.
Oh my goodness.
It does get rough. Like when we talked to Terry Barden last week, we were talking about just how, when everything goes good, nobody really complains that it's going good. But, man, when it goes bad one step wrong or the other way, boy, that's when the shit hits the fan. And it goes south kind of quickly.
We're all human beings, and we all make mistakes. And it's not like they're done on purpose or intentional, And it's terrible to me that, if a promoter or a scorekeeper or a flagman or a racer makes a mistake and then it's all over social media and it gets blown out of proportion, I think that's the drawback of social media, even though there's, it can ultimately be a good thing as well. But it is a thankless job, Bobby, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. And at some point, Robert, we're going to do this again where we can talk about your you're racing now, transforming over to dirt and all that. We'll definitely do that. But I do want to ask you about the emotions on Saturday. I mean, you mentioned what you were talking about right there. I think any of us that have a great dad, I had a scare with my dad a couple of months ago, and it's like I'm seeing life totally different right now. It's like,
Yeah.
I mean, you appreciate each and every day. I mean, just in a different way. But kind of walk us through that day. I mean, there had to be a lot of apprehension. There had to be a lot of. I mean, at some point, did you think maybe I won't race that day? I mean, but knowing that at Cotton Bowl, it's so much of our people. I mean, it's so much of our people that maybe you had to go there. I mean, just kind of take us through the whole day that you felt.
I'll try to do this without trying too much.
Dude, it's totally fine. It's totally fine.
I'm doing pretty good right now. So
you're doing damn good.
I think the beer helped a little bit. But
I told you that, man.
So, I got the call on a Wednesday afternoon that he had passed away. And I've already been working on the car, and it's we know it's coming. Okay, for the people that are listening that might not know, he had dementia, and he's had it for 10 years. In the last couple of years, it just got really, really bad. And you have to take care of your parents. They took care of us, and we did everything in our power to take care of him. And it just gets harder and harder and harder. And we're going to see him. We ultimately put him in a assisted living, memory care assisted living, and it just deteriorated from there. Mm-hmm. And but to answer your question, man, it never crossed my mind not to go to the racetrack. I got a lot of ass whoopings when I was a kid, and I mean a lot of them. And I don't mean with your hand, I mean belt busting ass whoopings. And I felt like if I didn't go to the racetrack on Saturday, I was going to get another one. Yeah. And it's where he wanted me to be. It's where I wanted to be. I wanted to be with my racing friends. See, here we go.
It's all good, man.
And but with my family, ultimately it was healing and upsetting, but I was overwhelmed with the responses that I've got, the handshakes, the hugs, the stories. Obviously I didn't run very good, and I had prayed that I do well, but I just kind of didn't. Maybe my mind wasn't right. But no, it was a super emotional day. I did the lap for opening ceremonies, and I told Rachel, I was like, I'm gonna just fall apart in this thing. Mm-hmm. I don't know if I'm gonna make it around in one lap or not. And honestly, I did okay. Make that lap. Yeah. And did a couple donuts on the back, and then it didn't even cross my mind until I was going down the back straightaway to do that. Yeah. And I just started crying a little bit, and so I gave a couple donuts to my dad, and didn't want to do like 20 of them because the tires were so expensive. So I just gave him a little bit, and gave him a hug and a kiss, and told him I was going to do my best, and which is always what he wants. And so I was good there, and then came up to park in the front for opening ceremonies and did okay. And then Joe Spielman, asshole, come up to me and said, "Man, I really loved your dad." And he reached in the car and gave me a hug. And my eyes started leaking, and I don't know if there was some dirt up there or what, but
onions.
Man, yeah, onion, I guess. I don't know, something. And so yeah, it was difficult, and it was very emotional. It was hard. My sister and her family came. Yeah. That's the blessing. I enjoyed them being. They don't come very often, and I think they got a picture of how important my dad was, in the racing community, and the great people, the family that are involved in racing. And it's not just a bunch of toothless hillbillies at the dirt track. It's a lot of loving, caring, successful people. And but yeah, it was very hard, very emotional. I think the worst and best part of the whole night is when the checkered flag fell in my race. At that moment, I didn't know Heath had won the race.
Yeah,
I just knew I was terrible, and so I drove to the pits. And truth be told, and I'm a man of, I just tell it like it is. I went to my pits, and I was sitting in my car crying, and I was pouting, and I wanted to do better for my dad. And excuse me, but I didn't know Heath had won at that moment, and they came over and it's like, "Hey, we need you out on the track." And I was like, "For what?" I'm just I want to sulk a little bit. Leave me alone. and but they said Heath won, and man, I just was crying, and at least one of us did.
Yep, that's right, and that's really the thing about it. I think, Robert, when like I said, I was out of state, just trying to figure out what was going to happen. I mean, obviously, you were going to be my guy. I'm like, damn it, Robert better win this race. But at the same,
yeah, right.
At the same,
that's how I felt when I was headed to the track. I better win this race.
And here's the stupid ass part for me. So and luckily I looked. So I went to the race pass after I got done with what I was doing. I go to race pass and I pull up race results, and it pulled up the results from the last race, which you won. And I was about to go buck wild over here on Facebook and be Mr. Posting shit and say Robert Stewart wins for Alvin. And luckily I checked the date, but that had to be pretty special there with Heath.
A quick little story about the winning the last race.
Do it, man. Do it, please.
Man, so we did share that video with my dad.
Oh.
And before he passed, and I don't know if I'm gonna say he enjoyed it and he watched it. He looked at the iPad the whole time. And that was good enough for me. I didn't have to win after his passing. I kind of like to win before he passed, and so I got to do that. And so that was very special that he got to watch that, and we shared that with him while he was in the nursing home.
Honestly, for me, I think that was probably maybe one of those situations where with that, I mean, just with everything, him being a racer and you guys, I mean, maybe that was the point where he said, whoever said, my work is done.
Right. I hear what you're saying. Well, it's time to go. I've done everything I can do here,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, we all have our perception of why it happened, whatever it is. I know he enjoyed life, and he loved all of his kids, loved all of his racing family, he loved his real family, he loved everyone he ever came in contact with.
Mm-hmm.
And, I miss him dearly. And, I just hope I do him proud.
Yeah. Oh, man, I know you already have. I mean, just let's end this on a high note. Just a couple of things. I mean, I saw something you sent me. I mean, your dad, social media skills before social media. He used to mail us stuff in the mail. I mean, it's like you'd get a race bulletin. It's like what in the hell?
I was hoping you'd get that before we talked. Because my sister actually sent that to me.
Yeah.
Before social media, and you misbehave on the racetrack or do whatever, and you got to get banned for a week or whatever the situation was. He's gonna type out a letter and gonna mail your ass a letter.
Mm-hmm.
And by the time you get it on Wednesday, because back then we raced every Friday or every Saturday. You get that letter on, Tuesday and Wednesday, and you're pissed off. You don't get to race this week because you acted like an idiot on the racetrack.
Man,
that was social media back then.
Robert,
and I think I got one of them letters one time, but it was hand delivered.
Dude, I bet. I remember one year that one of the Chevrolet dealerships or something, back when we had all the street stocks racing around here, we had so many cars.
Mm-hmm.
It was like I got a letter in the mail, I think on like a Friday, on a Friday, that we were racing for extra money on Saturday. I'm like, man, we ain't got time to cheat this car up. I mean, why the hell did I not get this before? But and the other thing with that, I mean, just the imprint that he's put on it. That's really the whole consensus of this. I mean, great racer, great promoter, great dad, great everything, great friend. I think is really the thing. He was a racer's racer. The dude just loved everybody.
He did. And I don't think anybody's mentioned it, but he also has grandkids and a wife that he's left behind, and they dearly miss him as well. I just wanted to put that out there because it hasn't been mentioned yet. There's a lot of people that he left that are grieving, including myself, whether it be his family or his racing family or friends in the past, whoever it might be. But yeah, there's so many people that he touched, and their hearts are warmer, that he touched them than they would have been.
Yeah, man. No doubt. So, And just for folks that are going to catch us afterwards, I mean, arrangements, all of that. Is that I know this is so quick. I mean, is all that pending? I mean, anything folks can check in with you guys?
The true story is he did not want a funeral, so we're going to do a celebration of life, and we're hammering out the details. They'll be out on social media, on Facebook, on my page, Rachel's page, my sister's, and we'll get it out there. But there won't be a funeral, so to speak, at a funeral home.
Good. And
there won't be a graveside service. We're just going to do a celebration of life. You know, a period of time of 3 or 4 hours. I don't know. We haven't locked it down yet. It's still in discussion with Carolyn and my sister Monica. And we just want a place where people can come and be dressed in their shorts and their flip-flops and casual. I don't care if you got a helmet on. I don't care. But come tell your stories to each other, lie to each other, and tell each other how many races you won or lost, or who cheated, who didn't. You know, he would love that more than people, you know, sitting in the pews crying about his passing. He'd rather sit up there and laugh his ass off that you know, Joe Blow won a race because so-and-so lost a cylinder. I mean, you know, just come tell your stories. If you have pictures, bring your pictures. We're going to have a slideshow of all of his racing stuff and family stuff and anything we can come up with. I mean, we're already working on all that stuff, but the details will come out soon. We're trying to get it, like I said, we're trying to get it hammered down, and it'll come out in the next few days.
Be like those old park parties is what it's going to be like. I mean, that's the way it should be. I mean, something like that.
Yeah,
like
it's going to be a pole party, just like Steve Sims had. You know, I keep talking about him, but he was a good friend of my dad's, and my dad loved him dearly, along with hundreds of other people.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're going to have a pole party, you know, somewhere. We haven't locked it down yet, but somewhere we're going to have a pole party, and everybody can have a drink, eat chicken queso, whatever the hell you want to bring,
Robert.
Or whatever the situation.
You give me that date, my brother, and if I'm in town, I'll MC that sumbitch, and we will sit there, and we man, we'll do it Longhorn style. Dude,
I'm gonna walk in there and I'm gonna crawl out of there.
yeah. Yes, you tell me when. Yeah. You tell me when. That offer stands, my friend.
Well, I appreciate it, Rodney. Y'all are all
Robert,
such great friends and family, man. I'm glad I got to spin you out a couple of times back in the day when we didn't exactly get along.
I know.
But those are memories that we're going to carry with us until we pass.
And that's the funny thing. You know, it's like, you know, people wonder, well, you know, so whatever. Man, I don't give a shit about that. I mean, I did then. I did then. I didn't like you then at that moment.
I know. I didn't have a lot of friends back then, you know. And you know, I was a little aggressive,
happens.
A time or two.
It happens.
Yeah, it happens.
It happens.
You know, just for example, like Tim Sewell came to me on Saturday, and I don't know if you know this or not, but him and my dad got into it at Longhorn.
Your dad punched him right in the nose, didn't he? You like knocked him out.
Oh man! So we were talking about that and just laughing about it because I told Tim the same thing. We're going to have a celebration of life, and you can just tell stories. And he's like, I don't know if I want to tell my story. I don't know if it's funny or not. I said, shit, it's funny as hell. Don't be embarrassed. I mean, tell your stories, whether, whatever they might be.
Oh, my God. That is going to be so funny.
I'll leave that story to Tim to tell. I don't want to tell it online unless he wants it. But
yeah, I think
I'll let him tell that story.
Right there. But, yeah, we'll let him do that. But, man, dude, I mean, thanks for checking in. Thanks for taking the time. And like I said, I want to end on a positive note here. But, seriously, keep me posted, and obviously love you, man. Love your family. Love all of you guys. You are you're my family, and Bobby's as well. And we'll stay in touch, dude.
I have a really good support group. I can tell you that.
Yeah, you do.
Lots of family and lots of people I care about, and y'all are part of that group.
All right, man. Thanks so much, and I'll talk to you soon, brother.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right, man. Take care. Here's Robert Stewart. That that had to be so hard for him. Mm-hmm. That's why I kind of wanted to end positive. I mean, it's like man, that's tough. That is so tough.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You never want to go through what he's going through, but I think he handled it pretty good.
Oh, he did well. He did well. I told him, I said, drink some beer before you come on, because I'm going to, and it'll make it better. And but seriously, I mean, and we're going off the cuff here in a little bit, and we're going to post up the phone line that we're going to throw out to the masses, and hopefully we get folks that are going to be checking in. And I do want to tell you before. So here's how that's going to work. So if you hit that phone line, if it just rings and rings and rings and rings, that means somebody's on the line. So just kind of hang tight, kind of listen to the show. There's a delay, obviously, right there with the way all that happens, but we'll try to take as many of those calls as we can. But obviously, we don't want to be here all night. I guess we could. I mean, I guess we could. What time you got to work tomorrow?
I got to be there at 8.
Oh, hell, we got all night.
We got plenty of time.
We got plenty of time. But good stuff there from Robert. Our hearts are with him. And, man, thank you all. Seriously, thank you all for reaching out to him, because this has to be really tough for him. I mean, like I said, I had a scare back in March, and I thought my life, it wasn't going to be my life ending that day, but I thought my world was about to end that day. So for the folks that are doing that for him, keep supporting him. Keep supporting Monica. Keep supporting the family. Keep supporting them, because that's ever so important right now.
Yeah, no, definitely to make all that happen. And Saturday had to be tough for him, but I think at the same time it was both tough and both healing at the same time. I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So we'll do that when we come back. We're going to open up the phone lines for the first time on the Revved Up Sports Show, and we'll continue to share memories about the great Alvin Stewart as we celebrate him this evening. That is coming up. Stick around. More coming up. Hey, everybody. Rodney Rodriguez for CRS Suspension. Are you ready to take your racing program into victory lane? Well, if you are, then it's time to call CRS Suspension, the industry leader in handling technology. CRS now solely owned by winning iStock and late model racer Jeffrey Abbey, whose knowledge can do big things for your oval track success. Give CRS Suspension and Fabrication a call today at 325-330-0647 and learn how you can get the shocks and technical guidance that will put you into the winner's circle. You either have CRS shocks under your car, or you get outrun by those who do. Choose to win and call CRS Suspension today, and follow them on Facebook at CRS Suspension Fabrication.
Have you heard about the latest and greatest technology being built around the DFW area? Generation Race Cars and JL Racing, located in Springtown, Texas, are now offering top-of-the-line, state-of-the-art Southern Sport mods and limited modifieds. Generation Race Cars and JL Racing can provide new cars, turnkey, complete bodies, shock revalving, and chassis updates, along with providing trackside setup guidance and a whole lot more. If you're looking at competing at a whole new level, call 817-528-2947 and ask for Justin today. You can contact them through the JL Racing Facebook page to learn more about Generation Race Cars. You put a ton of effort into your race program. Now take it to victory lane with GRC.
Back live, Revved Up Sports Show, as we are talking Alvin Stewart and all the great things that he did. And a huge thanks to Robert Stewart for checking in. That had to be tough right there, but he did a really good job. Thanks to Robert. And I'll tell you, that just really shows you how the family, part of this. There are just so many different families there when he starts talking about. And I got to tell you, Bobby, for us back in those days, it was weird for us. I mean, because now we're in a different, time now where, everybody's included and all of this stuff. But I mean, my dad and Uncle Martin and me, we were the only Mexicans around back then. And it was everybody.
Yeah, you guys there, and there's a few more in San Antonio, but as far as the Longhorn in Austin, y'all were it.
Yeah, I mean that really was it. And I mean, those people would always. They took us in. We were family, and I mean, like I told Robert, I mean, seriously, I spent so many I mean, so much time with the Stewarts and the Wallaces, more with Jake Jr. and with Lori and Marianne and all them than I really did with my own family. And that's racing family, and that's the stuff that Alvin did. I mean, that's the stuff that Alvin did, and that's what we're celebrating tonight. I mean, just everything. But I mean, your thoughts on it, Bobby? As a kid going to Longhorn, the racing was great. The racing was exceptional, but it was just a show. It was just a show on Saturday or Friday or Saturday night, man. It was unbelievable what he did.
I think the longer you went to Longhorn, the better it got.
Yeah.
Because I think obviously the longer you go, the more you start, you don't see the people hanging out in the pits like we used to back in the day.
Right.
We try to invite, as announcers, we try to invite the people from the grandstands to go into the pits. But a lot of times, even at the dirt track level, people load up their stuff and they leave and they go home. And even if it's an early night, people just load up and head on home. So I think the longer that you went to Longhorn events, the more you got to know people, and the more that they started becoming family, and it just became one big family. And it's one of those things to where obviously it had a large effect. It still had a large effect on my life now. I mean, if I wasn't going to Longhorn on Saturday nights, 35, 40 years ago, I probably wouldn't even be doing this show by no means.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no doubt. I mean, that's the one that really got you hooked, and that so many of us. I mean, so many of us that grew up at the place. So, opening up the phone lines, 512-348-6226. That is the listener line. Check in there. As I said, if you happen to hit that line and it just rings and rings and rings, that means that somebody is on there. We're going to take as many calls as we can. Just want to hear stories about Alvin, and just want to hear, from those days about all the things that he did, everything that he contributed, and we'll try to keep them as short as possible. Statements, stories. If you got a funny story about him, I mean, give those to us. We'd love to hear that. But hit us up right there, 512-348-6226. And share the great stories about Alvin Stewart with everything that he did there at Longhorn Speedway, which was way ahead of its time. I mean, and that's really one of the things we were talking about there with Robert was, I mean, think about that, the Motorola nights and all this. And Bobby, I was looking at I've got some programs over here that I've been going through, kind of pulling pictures and doing all these different things. And I'm looking at this, and I was telling somebody earlier, I was telling my dad earlier, where I looked at a program from, I forget what year, but you had every radio station in town. You had Case, KVET, Z102, AM, AM 590. You had all those. All of those were advertising. You had every strip club in town advertising. You had all of those that were advertising that were a part of that, because that's how big that was. And they went out and they sold that advertising.
They did. And that's why the program sold every week, despite the fact that it was identical except for the results and the points.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, unheard of back in those days. Going to the hotline presented by Computer Age Automotive, the Revved Up Hotline. Welcome to the Revved Up Sports Show. First call, who we got there?
Hey, you got Storm and Steve Sims here, Rodney and Bobby.
Storm and Steve Sims.
Your name kept coming up, man. And
sorry about that.
No, man. It seriously, Steve, talk about the legacy that Alvin leaves behind. I mean, it is so much that he did for our sport.
Man, I tell you what, for a guy that was first getting into the sport, we couldn't have been luckier to have Alvin as the promoter to teach all of us, about this stock car racing, because I didn't know anything about it. I'd never done it, didn't know anything about it. Just went out there, was content to be a spectator. But then when we figured out, like what Robert said, racing was affordable back then with the rules that they had. I remember going to those first few rules meetings, and those meetings were wild, for the Capital Area Association or whatever the deal was,
Yeah.
And we went to a couple of those years in a row, and those meetings were really wild. And then I remember we got the thing in the mail about the rules meeting saying there's going to be no drinking at the next one, because man, they turned into just like big old arguments and stuff. And I remember one of the funniest things Alvin ever said about rules was, people always just kind of hollered up things that they wanted to happen. Somebody hollered up there and they said, "What about a front-wheel drive car? Can you drive a front-wheel drive car?" And Alvin didn't miss a beat. He said, "Only if you drive it in reverse." So that was a typical Alvin story. He was so funny about everything. He loved to pick on everybody. He loved to pick on all of us. He was just a lot of fun. There was just a great car count out there and fans, and I just give the credit to Alvin the way he did everything back then. You know, way before social media and everything. That place was just rocking when we got there, and it was till the very end. You know, cars parked everywhere, tons of cars in the, you know, in every class. Just, you know, so much fun. And everybody still says that was the best racing ever. Those are the good old days, all that stuff, you know.
Yeah.
And I give the credit to Alvin for the way he did everything out there and the way he treated all of us racers, just like we were just like him, because he was a racer too.
That's right.
Yeah, and I think I think that's how he understood the promotion business. Not a lot of race car drivers that go into the promoting of a racetrack really make it work, because they either have too much feelings on their sleeves and all of that. Remember some of the bad blood over the good times, but Alvin was able to balance that really good. I thought that, you know, for sure. I mean, you guys were more deeply involved behind the wheel than I was sitting in the grandstands cheering everybody on, watching you guys race, but it seemed like he was able to understand the racers and knew what it took. He had a good feeling about what it took to put on a really good show to keep the fans coming back.
Right. It's like he was the high school principal.
Yeah.
We were all the students. It was up to us to behave, to get to keep going, to get to race. I got lucky. I never got one of those letters that said you can't come back. I did get a talking to in the principal's office by him, though, one time, Terry James and I. You guys know about that.
Oh, man.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, just so many things that he said back then. You know, I remember him saying stuff like, you know, when your car gets beat up, just fix it up the best you can with what you got. Don't bring your car back here already. Just fix it up the best you can. And I remember him, another thing that he said, you know, it's like when someone would get mad at him, you know, they give him the, oh, I'm never coming back here, and, you know, this isn't fair, and you like the other guys, and I'll never come back here and race. He said that driver would always be the first one through the gate next week.
Yes, sir.
Mm-hmm.
Every damn time. I think we did that a few times. I think we did that several times. Steve, one of the things that I'm pulling up here, and thank you for calling in. I mean, you were actually the first call-in of the Revved Up Sports Show, which is pretty cool. I mean, Alvin was so creative that, I mean, I've got it pulled up on the screen right there. You know, you go race on Saturday night, go do all this thing. Hey, come to my nightclub. Come to the pit stop afterwards. Let's
Forgot about that.
You remember that? I mean, that's how damn good he was. Let's go to the pit stop.
Yep, we did. We went to that. We went to a Halloween party there one time before. Yeah. Yeah, and he came to quite a few parties at my house here. I'll save some of those pictures to send to Rachel to get for the deal that they're going to have for him eventually. And, yeah, just a great deal. And, you know, and one last thing I would like to say, this is how flattered I was about something that Alvin thought about my son, Bruce.
Yeah.
You know, he called one time just out of the blue, hadn't talked to Alvin in a long time. And, it was before he started getting sick. And, he called to ask about my son, Bruce. And he said, you know, I've known Bruce since he was little, and I've always really liked him, and he's a great boy. He said, I've got a granddaughter I'd like to fix him up with. And I was like, holy cow, that's what you're calling about? His granddaughter Sabrina and Bruce went out and had ice cream just one time. And I just thought it was great that's what he thought enough of my son to try to fix him up with his granddaughter, even though nothing ever materialized out of him. I'm still very flattered. You know, I love Alvin. I love the whole Stewart family. My wife, Tracy, was really tore up to hear about it, you know, but we knew it was coming, like Robert had said.
Right.
And it's just really a sad day, you know, for racing in this whole area.
Yeah.
Everybody that raced under his watch, you know, was better for it, because a lot of good racers come out of that track, and it's directly related to him, I think.
Yeah. He saved the place. Stormin, thanks for checking in, my friend. I knew that you would. And man, we're going to have a hell of a party when that celebration comes up, dude. I cannot wait for that. That's going to be some good times. We're going to tell some stories.
Sounds good. We'll be there.
All right, man. Take care, Stormin.
All right. Thank you, guys.
You bet. Steve Sims, that is one of the guys. And I see that Tiffany Vogel checked in right there, and she was talking about kind of some of the old ski trips.
Mm-hmm.
And I know there's pictures of those. I have them in the
program.
In the programs, yeah. You know, you got John Tolley over there and all those guys. And that was, man, he was just way ahead of his time. You talked about, Bobby, the banquets and all that stuff. That was man, kind of as the years have gone on. I mean, some of the banquets we've emceed, I mean, they're kind of stuffy. But that was good stuff. Check in right there, 512-348-6226 if you got some Alvin stories to talk about. But, so far ahead of its time.
I just think that the way that it just grew the family, because, we love some of the newer tracks. And obviously you're building a new family up in Mobile. I'm building a new family down there in Edna. But, we've often said, and no disrespect to any of the other tracks, is that we've always used the phrase, it's a great place, you're having a great time, but it's not what Longhorn had.
No.
And that's not a disrespect
never.
or a shot at any other racetrack. But I think that's what made Longhorn so special. Maybe that's because deep down, that's our home track. It's always going to be our home track. And when we went to San Antonio, we had a good time. We went to Corpus, have a great time and all that. But we always say it doesn't have what Longhorn had. But that's, that I think that just makes it so special now, because it's been gone, 25 years now?
Yeah. I mean, and that's the funny thing that that Tiffany actually mentioned right there, where she's talking about. She said only the family friendly pictures were in there, and that was the cool part about that. I mean, because that really was a lot of how all that operated. Was it? I mean, we're racing people. I mean, these things happen.
I mean, you're not going to put the unfamily friendly pictures in the program. I mean,
oh, that's right, because we had this, or they had to sell programs and all that back in the day. So
LMA sold more programs though.
Well, and seriously, I mean, I do want to go back to that, because like I have some laying here right here, and that really was the first thing. You think about that right now, when we had Owen's program laying there, and that phone number is right there. Tiffany, you should call. Because I think you could tell us some stuff. 512-348-6226. But you would walk in the door, you would pay your, whatever it was, $5, $6, whatever it was to get in there. And you were met by people ready to hand you and sell you a program for $2, $3, whatever it was.
Pictures were $1, programs were $2.
Yeah. And I'm going to reach down here. I mean, you had these, and I mean, this is just a little bit of what I was going back there looking for. I mean, this is just the Longhorn days. I mean, here's 94. I mean, you had 94 that was full of information. This was 95, 97. I mean, all the way back to 1987, and I think this was 85. I mean, this is something that like we talked about with Owen, and I had some CARA ones. I just haven't found them yet. I know where they are, but this is how you hook people. Mm-hmm. I mean, right here, you sell this or give them away. I mean, and give them one of these. I mean, to where you can go get the autographs, and that's where Longhorn was so ahead of its time back in those days, to where that's what Alvin did. He reached out and he won those people over. When they would do those Motorola nights and all that bullshit, it was like, come on in here, buy this program for $1, and you'll be back the next week. And a lot of times they were.
They did. And I mean, that remember Motorola nights? They did not only those, they picked the big businesses right there around the Speedway to try to give out the tickets to. Motorola is probably the most notable, because they gave away so many of the Motorola tickets. It was always like, it felt like once a month was Motorola night at the races.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. And I mean, that was what you did back then. So, anybody else that has some Alvin stuff, I mean, feel free to check in right there. That is the number, 512-348-6226. I know people, that's the funny thing about having a listener line, is that we're actually throwing it out, and there's a lot of people watching, but they don't want to call.
They've been asking for it. We've delivered, and now it's,
Yeah, there it is right there, and we have a way to do it. So it's just, I mean, it's so sad that and it had to be hard for the family that it's like Robert talked about with dementia. I mean, because that's the hard part, because it's it's one thing I've always said, that when I pass, and I hope I don't pass tomorrow, because I'm going to say this, to the masses, but if I'm going to pass, I just hope it, boom, happens, but when it happens that way, it's hard. It's hard.
Yeah.
And it, for all the family, for Robert and for Monica and for Alvin's wife and everybody, that whole support system. I'm just glad that there are so many people that are celebrating everything he did, because a lot of people, when people pass, it's like they've passed and everybody's sad. But it really seems to be like, to me, that there are a lot of people that are sad right now, but they're realizing everything that he did.
Yeah, I mean, and it's always bad that it usually happens after the fact.
Yeah.
So maybe everybody needs to take a step forward and think about some of the stuff during your present time.
Yeah.
Not try to think about it after the fact. And it's not just necessarily with this Alvin deal, but hell, everyday life, you know.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Another great one, Tiffany. Alvin ran over mom's foot when her and man, I lost it. When her and Sherry were working in the and that's the thing. I remember, back when we would go to race. I mean, Alvin had the top-notch crew. He had all the best crew, because you would have Tiff's mom and Sherry were sitting there, and they were like the staples in that pit office. I mean, they're sitting there working, ran over foot. He put a bunch of good people together. We were talking about Tony and Sam Hill and all that. That's the one thing that you always knew back in the day, that you were going to go to that racetrack. You were going to have the racing was going to be good, but the whole presentation, I mean, everything. I mean, it was going to be top notch, and that is, I remember back in the early '90s, Louise Epstein, that was a city council member
forever,
in Austin,
and very popular city council member at that.
Absolutely, and I think she was sponsoring Beretti's car, and all it said was Louise Epstein, and that wasn't the thing to do back in those days for her to have her name on a damn race car driver's car. She would go out there and she'd be just as shit-faced as the rest of us in the damn crowd, and that's what that place did. And I think about it so often, as Austin has become hip and cool. If that place was still hipping and hopping, we talk about the Bowman Gray. Man, can you imagine if we still had Longhorn Speedway on a Saturday night right now in Austin?
I don't think it would have lasted. I just don't. I mean, it would have been great. I just don't know if it would have lasted. As woke as Austin become, I don't know if it would have lasted till this day.
I don't know. Still love to hear from you guys.
Maybe somebody will build a new one day.
Oh man, it'd be so hard. It would have to be somebody like Alvin, because it is. I hate to say it. I mean, I talk. That's why each and every time that we have a race at COTA, I make damn sure to say that for all the folks that love racing out there at COTA, man, you missed the good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
The best track ever was right there at the tip of 812 and 183. And seriously, it was Alvin, because think about that, Bobby, because I mentioned when the Houston thing happened, and we can kind of correlate this into that discussion. I don't know the details of what's happening there with John and everything. I think he's got a good plan in place, and I'm sure that they're going to do a really good thing. But when it became apparent that Gina was not going to be able to operate that racetrack, my first thought was, and I think I posted this, I'm like, somebody needs to do an Alvin Stewart CARA. Do it yourself. Don't rely on somebody else. Do what Alvin did. Go out there, have a board, take the lease on. I mean, you do it. You figure it out. We figure it out. I mean, because that's what he did. Because that was the case back then in 81. In 81, that was the last year that Jake Sr. and Marianne and Danny and all of them, they had run the track. 80 was a rough year. There was a guy named Ray Moonen that ran the place, and whatever reason that happened. Mac had run the place for a while, but in 82 it wasn't going to open. It was not going to open, and that's when Alvin said, "Well, watch this shit. Hold my beer," said Alvin Stewart.
I mean, that's exactly what happened. I mean, I'm trying to get something to work on Facebook, and it's not working. But
yeah, Facebook sucks.
Yeah, I know.
But that was
now it's working.
That was the thing. That's exactly what he did, and it's unheard of what he did, and the contributions are going to be on and on and on. Just everything that he did, he gave back, and I love what Robert said when he said that he wanted to put himself in the place of the racer, and that's I think something that we'll talk about at the celebration is where Alvin was an innovator in the fact that he was a racer, and that he decided at some point that he wasn't going to drive, but he would still have the late model and the 63 car that you talked about. I remember the Alvin's mobile home car that he would park out in front, TIDA car, and take pics and all that stuff of that.
Mm-hmm.
But Alvin, I think the the true legacy of him with saving racing in Austin was that he was a racer. He put himself in that spot. He knew what the racer needed to overcome. He knew the plight of the racer. He knew the plight of the pit crew man and the track workers and all of that. I know times are different right now, but that's really where I think when we circle back to this, if we could get that happening again, I think that but it takes a big person to do that.
Well, and like we said, not every single racer makes a really good promoter. Alvin made that transition look somewhat easy. It was almost as if you would call it a natural progression from a race car driver into the promoting aspect of it. I think that's what changed the fate of Longhorn there. When he took it over, it wasn't going to open in 82, and then it was like a slow burn, right? The early 80s were okay. You got to the late 80s, 88, 89, into 90 right there, and it started blowing up. I mean, the street stock battles between Steve Sims and Terry James and
rivalries. I mean, they promoted that. I mean,
there was always a good guy and a bad guy in every class.
Every damn time. And, Bobby Joe, and I mean, all those guys that they would get out there. And just another one here from Tiffany, when JC and Dusty, when they're about 10 years old, they would walk the track and pick up all the bolts. Man, I used to go out there and find, body parts. I mean, I wanted to find all that. Let's see. They worked for 10 hours and paid $8. Child labor laws.
What are those?
Alvin Stewart, businessman right there. That is how creative he was. And the thing is, I mean, even towards the end of it, and we'll wrap this up here in just a minute, if nobody else wants to call, come on, y'all, call in. Come on, free air. But when you go back and you look at that, I just think it was the place to be. I keep saying that. I knew random people, back in those days when I had real jobs. I would tell people, come out to Longhorn Speedway on Saturday night because the beer is so cold and the food is so good and the action on the track is cool because we got a bull ring racetrack out there and we just get out there and race and you're going to have about 4 classes. They're just going to get after it. And oh, by the way, we might roll in a TIDA and it's just going to make your it's going to tingle your private parts when they come out on the track.
I remember when they added in, I guess it was called the Chargers at the time, the long wheelbase, 112-inch wheelbase cars, the old Caprices.
Hobby stock, yeah.
And I remember that there was an uproar because it was like, holy shit, 4 classes? No, there's no way we can run a 4th class here.
Yeah. You know what he did so well? I think he was actually the one where we have talked so many different times on the show about the evolution of the classes. When the street stock become the super stock and hobbies become the street stock. He handled that so well. It was so smooth.
Because the supers I remember when the supers dropped off and it's like, we're not having a super stock class because there were 4 super stocks, old school super stocks. Because everybody with a super stock at the time went TIDA racing because it wasn't that much more expensive to go TIDA racing with the super late models at the time with Upchurch in them. But if you really think about it, I remember when you used to, old school, you would call the damn number to listen to the answering machine to find out exactly what time, especially when it's going to rain out.
Yeah.
You'd have to call for an hour to determine whether or not the race was going to get rained out.
Right.
On the Longhorn number, well, actually San Antonio too. I'm sure Corpus had the same thing. But the way that
Waco still does that.
Does Waco still have one?
Mm-hmm.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy. An old school landline like that?
Mm-hmm.
That's great. Well, not everybody has social media.
But, I remember those days, Bobby, what you're talking about, because you had, I think it was probably 82, 83 is kind of when you had the late models, which was, you had Slick, you had Keith Reithmeyer, Trooper, I think, had one. Ronnie Chambers, Leroy Farmer.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you had Farmer. You had those guys that were still doing that, and that started to fall off. And it was such a smooth transition to where they did that, and then late models are gone. They're going to do what they're going to do, and then like the super stocks came to life, and then the super stock class became so big, to where you had. I mean, think about that back in the as we got to the mid '80s. With what you had as a super stock back then, you had Umscheid, you had Don Krudemski. I mean, all of these guys. I mean, it's a who's who of guys, but it was always so smooth the way that they would transition these things over. I mean, even back when I started racing out there, when I first dug in as my first race there, I was a hobby stock, and that's when the prior street stock class was dying off a little bit, and they elevated them to super stocks, which that became Steve Sims, Jake Wallace, and Sandifer, and all those guys, and we became the street stocks, which was, man,
all Novas,
32 cars. Yeah, I mean, and then as it always happened, we would it always transitioned. He just did that really well. It
was somewhat well received, I thought, too, because I remember calling that opening night, and we've got super stocks, street stocks, and hobby stocks. I thought they canceled, and then you realize that they just moved everybody up a class.
It was just a different class.
It was just seamless.
Right.
What year did the late models start switching to the fiberglass bodies?
I think that
90-ish.
That would have been around 90. And for me, the weird part back then, Bobby, was when we started, when they started calling the super stocks of what you're talking about, like Peanut Parrot, when he showed up with that Lumina, I'm like, that ain't no super stock. That's a damn late model.
Yeah.
Whatever. But it was everything underneath. But that class was packed. And it was always so cool to me because you would have that class to where you would have Steve Sims in his Camaro, sitting out there racing against that car. And then when Bucky Butkerite showed up out there, and he had that Oldsmobile, that big old long aftermarket body thing, and he had a good run right there. But at the same time, you would get somebody with Don Krudemski or Mark might show up in a damn
old school
steel body car and whip their ass. And I mean, I think that's where they did all of that so well.
Well, it worked. I mean, the combination worked. You were able to run multiple cars under one class, and it's not like one person went out and whooped a lot of ass in any of those classes. I guess every once in a while you get somebody on a roll that would.
You had periods like Bobby Joe that went out there and just destroyed him. Remember when he showed up with that car? It's like
on the back of a wrecker. It's like,
yeah, and that was the funny thing because Bobby Joe showed up and I guess that was a Lumina.
Mm-hmm.
And again, and think back to that. Let's talk about Bobby Joe, because one of the things that I saw in one of these books, and I'll pull it out here in just a second, is Alvin would go out the celebrity race. It only worked there. I know at Kyle, we tried it. Nobody wanted to do it.
Well, and then Bama Brown used to do the Z102 thing. But they just took the Z102 banner on the side of Bobby Joe's car, and he'd go out and, he was trying to break the track record. Never got close to breaking the track record, but he was raising money for muscular dystrophy or something like that.
Yeah, they would put Bama Brown in the fastest car. He was going to win no matter what. I mean, I think in 95 he did Alvin did a celebrity race, and I think Peg Zars from KLBJ drove my car, and my car always turned left. And here's a funny story. So Peggy Zars shows up and she's going to drive my car. She gets out there. She's having trouble turning it because it was a 3,500 pound lead sled that only I could drive because Dad would set this thing up to where I didn't have to work too hard. I just had to turn it. I just had to point it and turn it. Peggy shows up. She drives it. So get this. She shows up for the celebrity race, and she's at the that time of the month. And everything else is happening, and she's trying to drive that car.
Jeez.
And she spins out, and the damn thing, she can't turn it to the right because my car would hit the oil pan. You turn it to the right, and the damn steering link would hit you couldn't turn it. But that's what he did. That's what he did. He would get out there, and he would just creative. Do all of these things, and he brought the media in. I mean, they did a lot of good things.
They did, and there was a lot of fun stuff sitting there at Longhorn trying to get all that. The celebrity races were good because you had a mix of just local DJs and local elected officials or people trying to run for elected officials and stuff like that. So it definitely became a unique place, and it was rowdy, but it was fun, and it was just and we talked about it a couple of weeks ago when the change to go from Friday night to Saturday night to go head-to-head against San Antonio was one of those decisions. It was like, oh, hell, this ain't going to work. You can't go head-to-head against San Antonio. Nobody's going to race there.
That was a huge gamble. And that right there, I think it paid off so well. I mean, I remember when that happened because it was – and it kind of sucked for us because we would do the double. We would do the Friday night and then Saturday at San Antonio or maybe Corpus if we wanted to feel like taking a road trip or whatever the case may have been. But that was something where I think that really turned it. I mean as crazy as as it is to say, because a lot of people think of Speedorama as a Friday night track, but when it went to Saturday, that's when the shit hit the fan, dude.
Mm-hmm.
That's
when it blew up.
That's when it became, we sit and talk and talk about, you watch all these documentaries about things, back in the 80s and 90s and all these things that happened, whether it be a music thing or whatever it was. When Longhorn went to Friday, oh my God, are you kidding me? That was unbelievable.
You mean with Saturday?
Oh, yeah. Saturday. Sorry. Yeah.
That's when it blew up. When was that? That was 87?
I think that was probably around 89 or 90, I think is when that change was made.
Yeah, because I remember going on. It was always Saturdays, and when I went, and I didn't go to the late 80s. So
yeah, but it it just goes without saying it was always a good time. You were going to be entertained, and Kenneth checking in, talking about the city park and all of that. That was what he did. That's what Alvin did. He progressive, way before. People need to go back and study what he did.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah. Still time to check in before we cut this thing loose. We'll probably cut it loose here in just a little bit. 512-348-6226 if you want to check in on the hotline. And I actually think that we may have somebody on there right now. So we're going to jump over. It is the Revved Up Sports Show on the Computer Age Automotive Hotline. Live with Bobby and Rodney. Who you got?
This is Tim Sewell. How are you doing, sir?
Terrible Tim Sewell checking in. And we were actually mentioned, you got mentioned a while ago.
A couple of times.
As a matter of fact. But Tim, talk about that. You're.
Let me guess from Robert.
yeah. Caldwell County guys. You got 3 of them right here from Caldwell County. All originally on the line right here. Tim, talk about Alvin. Talk about what that place meant to you. You cut your teeth there. Man, we all grew up there. We learned our social skills at that place.
We all learned our social skills at that place. Longhorn meant that was basically my childhood.
Yep.
Every Saturday night and Friday nights when Alvin didn't have it, that's where we grew up. That's where I drank my first beer. That's where I got in my first race car. My dad started sponsoring Terry James and Junior when we first started going out there, and you and your dad, Rodney.
Yeah.
It was home.
Mm-hmm.
Alvin made it a home for everybody.
Yeah, he did.
My story with Alvin, and I'm pretty sure Robert's going to get a chuckle out of this, being we were discussing it a little earlier,
and we can
actually Saturday.
We can retell this at the celebration too.
Well, it was an interesting event that happened that night. I was running with Lou Picone and Will Doherty at that time. In the 22 car. Will's motor blew up the week before, so Will got in my car. I was at the track, and I was helping out in the infield. Robert and Willie were running 1 and 2. Robert was chasing down Willie, and there was something happened on the track, and there was a whole bunch of rocks that were scattered up on the track. And after the race, Robert told somebody, and Alvin got word of it, that Robert thought I was throwing rocks at Robert while he was racing at the racetrack, while I was in the infield. After that race was over, I was standing in turn 2, the entrance of the track. And next thing I knew, I was knocked cold out on the ground. Come to find out, when I came to, it was Mr. Alvin Stewart that knocked me right in the back of the neck, right behind the ear, and knocked me smooth out.
That can't be your only Longhorn memory. You got to have better Longhorn memories than that, Tim.
Well, yeah, I've had a lot of good memories there. won my first race, second time out on the track. A lot of the beer fest after the races, the beer parties. Yeah, and to tell the truth, that was the first time I ever kissed a girl was at Longhorn Speedway.
Jeez. Don't let all the secrets out. So talk about back in the day. You remember you started out in the hobby stock class, and we talked about the different evolutions of the classes. I mean, I remember when they went back. We talked about when they made the evolution to go from the 4 classes, where they moved down got eliminated of the super stock late model type of class and moved everybody up a class. That was huge for you guys to end up being that beginner class with those bigger wheelbase cars.
Excuse me. Yes, it was. Especially when we were able to actually start running the racing slicks instead of the Tau City. We were actually able to run the Tau City recaps instead of the groove tires.
Yep.
That was a big step up for us. I mean, it was basically running the same rules except for the tires. And with the tires, it made the cars a second and a half faster just by the tires. And it made racing better. Racing better for all of us in that class.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm glad you mentioned that, Tim, because that's one thing. And man, I wouldn't have thought about that unless you mentioned it. But that's, again, one of the things that he did with the recaps. I mean, think about that. I mean, $60 a tire, whatever that was.
Yeah, back then it was like $50 to $55 just depending on the tire.
Yeah, I mean, we all ran those, and I mean, you can't soak those things. I mean, you can soak them all you want. We tried, but I mean,
we tried.
there was no way to do it. And I think that's just something else that he talked about, and I think for me it was kind of full circle when I got into the dwarf cars because that's what we ran with those. But I mean, elaborate on that because it's like, okay, doesn't matter how fast you are, you're running this rock hard ass tire, and sorry. It is what it is. I don't give a damn what class you are. This is the track tire.
It is the track tire. And truth be told, Rodney, when the first year we ran the Tau City recaps, I ran the whole season on 5 tires.
I believe it.
They were rock hard and they did not go away. You scuff them just a little bit, and it didn't matter how many tire cycles or heat cycles you went through them.
Yeah,
they stayed the same.
Dude, you want to hear something even funnier? So Uncle Martin still has some of my 7-inch street stock tires in his barn.
Oh hell!
Those some bitches still have air in them. They ain't gone flat.
Oh yeah,
from 90 whenever that was.
94, 95, all the way up to what 90, 98.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. I mean, just way ahead of his time. That is the whole thing we keep talking about.
Now, truth be told, Rodney, if a lot of tracks stayed with that tire, my honest opinion, a lot of tracks would probably still be open because of the cost.
Yes, sir.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, sir. But Bobby can attest to this because when he was a part, and again, this is a different discussion, but I'm going to throw this in because we're talking about those tires. Bobby was a part of the sport mod thing on asphalt. They wanted to be more affordable. They put them on those tires.
They hated it.
They're bitching because they lost, half a second?
Easily. I mean, they were a hell of a lot slower, but
they last a long damn time.
They sure did.
I can tell you that.
And it made the class competitive.
That's right.
Everybody was competitive. Not one person was going out there and dominating.
That's right.
If you got the setup right with those tires, everybody was competitive. That's why you've seen 2 or 3 wide racing at Thunder Hill or CTS because of that tire.
That's right. That's right.
I love the tire personally.
Me too. I mean, yeah, I love it. I mean, that's the equalizer. That was the thing. And again, Alvin was the one that went and found this damn thing. So, yeah, good stuff. Tim, thanks for checking in, man. Love the memories, and we got to get a beer soon, my man. I miss you guys.
Yes, sir.
Absolutely.
Miss y'all too.
You bet. Take care, man.
Yes, sir.
You bet. Terrible Tim Sewell checking in on the Revved Up Sports Show hotline. So, again, great stuff right there that he's talking about. I mean, all of that. And, I mean, it's just bottom line. He was just an innovator. Going back to the hotline once again, you are live on the Revved Up Sports Show. You got Bobby and Rodney. Who do we have on the hotline?
Hi, guys. It's Marianne Nauman.
Oh, my
How
goodness.
are y'all?
I know that voice right
Recognize
there.
that voice right there.
Marianne. That, you know, M.A., it's so cool for me. I was joking with Robert. You know, I've spent more time with you guys than my own damn family. But your thoughts about Alvin. Man, he was just so good at what he did.
He was. You know, in 81, my family had the track, and it was just too negative of a force for my dad to deal with. And my mother and I, we loved it. And but he just said no more. And so racing was going to shut down, and there wasn't going to be any racing. And Alvin stepped up to the plate and got a bunch of racers together and came up with the association and saved racing for many years. And then, you know, then he stepped out on his own and put his entire neck out there and kept it going for many years after that. And he did a fantastic job. Back in the day, it was him and Lisa, and they did a great job on the marketing when they went out and got the big companies coming out there. I remember seeing the grandstands pretty empty, and then all of a sudden it just seemed like, wow, where did all these people come from? And it was just, you know, they were just a genius on how they got folks out there for the first time. And of course, you know, all the racers kept them coming because they got a good show. So it was it was great. And then it went for many years like that. So it definitely, he was a true asset to racing, and he was a great brother-in-law for many years and a friend many more years past that. So loved Alvin, loved Carolyn. Of course, I love my nieces and my nephews. So anyway, hurts my heart, but you know, I know he's in that, he's up there and looking down on us now. And last couple of years, he hasn't been able to really be really there with everyone. So right now, I mean, I know Saturday night that he was there and he was watching those racings. And if Robert can't win it, he's going to. So we're going to put a steward in the victory lane, and it happened, and we're blessed with that.
That's right.
So, Marion, the one thing we were talking about earlier is that we've always used the phrase that this place doesn't have what Longhorn had. And Rodney and I were talking about it before. The closest place we found that has what Longhorn has is what we had there, what you have going right now at Cotton Bowl, and then what we had somewhat at the Thunder Hill days. But it's going to be hard to replicate anything that Longhorn had, but I think you guys are doing a pretty good job over there at Cotton Bowl.
Thank you. We have a lot of folks that came from there. If they didn't come from there, their grandparents came from there. You know, it's like a great. When Cotton Bowl came along, Thunder Hill as well. But when Cotton Bowl came along, I think it brought out those that didn't really care for Thunder Hill, the 3/8 mile. That even though we're 3/8 mile at the Cotton Bowl, I think they had missed it Longhorn enough, and then all of a sudden it seemed like more down to what they were used to at Longhorn. And so we had that Longhorn reunion, and it was great. That was great. That happened at Cotton Bowl, and so many folks. I mean, you see Steve, Klustenek there every single race. It's like you see those same people that you saw at Longhorn. So I have to agree with you, Bobby. It's probably the closest we can get to all of us with our memories with the Longhorn Speedway. Yeah. And like I said, in 81, it was going to go away, and he stepped up to the plate and did a fine job of it.
Yeah. And Marianne, talk about that for you. I mean, because you were obviously at that point, I mean, you had, with Jake and Frankie that were involved with that, and you guys became a part of that. What did you take from that? I mean, because I see so much of what Alvin used to do, back when he ran that place. I see so much of that in you. I mean, you had to have picked up on the things that he was doing there. I know how you are. I think you studied him, and you have taken a lot of what he did, and you continue to put that into what you're doing right now at CBS.
Thank you. I appreciate that, because with my dad not wanting to carry on and my mother and I wanting to carry on, Alvin gave me that opportunity to step in there and help him for some time there. And I learned a lot from him, and he was he was just great to work with. His attitude was always great, and he didn't hoover over you. So I tried to learn from him. Like I try to learn from a lot of people, and I tried to. But I have to say, I learned a lot from Alvin, and I think it's not like Alvin was taught it. I think Alvin was a racer for so many years, and that's what I think I bring to the table is that I've had racers. My dad was a racer. My son's a racer. My nephew, it's racing. My brother. So it's like when you have that and what those racers are going through as a promoter, you're able to feel a different side of what those racers are feeling. And I think Alvin had that. He knew what that racer was feeling when they climbed out of that race car, so he was able to accommodate because of that, because he knew what that feeling was. Like you got to get, in my opinion, you got to give a driver some space. The adrenaline's got to come down, and then you got to get down to, you got to let them blow some smoke, and then you got to step back and say, okay, now this is how we're going to do this. Let's work together on this. So I think he knew that, and I think I learned that part from him a lot. And then I think driving a race car myself, I knew when I climbed out of that race car, it's like I was, I might have been a woman in a seat, but when I climbed out, it didn't matter. I was a driver, and I was either pissed off or I was happy or whatever. But
yeah. Lastly, Marianne, talk about those days. We keep talking about the glory days. I mean, it was Friday or Saturday. Usually, when it went to Saturday, Longhorn, Speedorama, whatever you want to call it. That was a place to be. It was a social event before social events were cool. Remember those days? I mean, how cool was that? Grandstands packed. So cool. The beer was cold. The food was good. The racing was amazing. We don't need to do madhouse stuff. Weren't those just the best days ever?
The best days. I lived for Friday nights in high school. Yeah. It's like everybody else was living for football games, and I was living for racing. My mother worked so my dad could race. That's how much she loved racing. Dad took care of the family, and Mom took care of the racing. So I learned that, and it just has always just been a part of my life. And those are some of the best memories, and I hope that we're recreating some of those memories on every Saturday night that we're racing. That's my goal. One of the things I love to see is smiling faces, and when I can walk through the grandstands, and I might be waving and looking like I'm trying to be somebody, but really I'm just happy to see that person, and I'm happy to see that person with that smile on their face, because I remember that. My dad was a racer, and I remembered when those drivers came up, like Jimmy Fingers, he would sit down below me, and Waldo Harper, and I go like, that's Waldo, and that's Jimmy, and I know these kids do that same thing today when our drivers go up into the grandstands. They're going like, that's a race car driver right there, and you just get it, and you get it in your blood. So it just goes on, and I hope that I hope we're creating memories right now for people that, like Alvin did at Longhorn Speedway.
And I think that's one thing that you do really well, is that you. With Alvin and your dad. I mean, I remember being a kid, and I'd see your dad with that great hair, a polo shirt. I mean, he's all put together. It's hot as hell out there. He's not sweating, and he's out there, waving at the fans. I mean, just that's something you do
from his heart. It's from his heart, and and that's what I do. When I'm waving at you from my heart, and I that's just. It's who I am. It's what I am. And I guess if I ever change, then it's time to get out of this business.
That's right. Marianne, thanks for checking in. I mean, I was hoping you would call. I mean, because you've been so imperative in all of this, and keep doing what you're doing. And thanks for
thank you. Well, I love Robert, Monica. I love you guys, and Monica. Thank you so much for coming Saturday night. It was just our pleasure to have you there. And anyway, Carolyn, we love you. And everybody, thanks for calling in and giving this time to Alvin.
That's right. Good stuff. Thanks, MA. We'll talk soon.
Thanks.
You bet. Marianne Nauman right there. And it does go back to those times when those two families, they ran that place. And I think people don't know.
Back to back.
Yeah, because at one point it was that, Jake was the promoter. But, I mean, it was a full team of people. And for her to, kind of throw all that in there, I mean, it was a team effort. And that's what Alvin did. I mean, that's exactly what he did. So still some time here before we shut this thing down. If you want to call in, 512-348-6226, hit us up right there, and we'll get ready to get you on your way. In case you want to watch the Home Run Derby, for crying out loud.
Yeah.
Bobby, your final thoughts. I mean, it really was, because it, we keep talking about social events and everything, but man, the characters that we had back in those days. You talked about Spiller, and I remember when Jimmy would roll up, with all those cars on that
fancy ass trailer with them
what
black
in the
chrome
hell
wheels.
is this? I'm like, what is this? I mean, come on. But I mean, go back and think about that. And what I loved about when Alvin ran the racetrack right there was that he would sit out there and he would run the heat races. And that was such a big thing back in those days, because, I became a better racer in 1995 when I went out there and in my car that we had been struggling, and I was tearing shit up every week, and my poor dad was sitting there having to replace shit every damn week because I would hit everything on the racetrack. I won a heat race, and it changed everything. And every class had a heat race, and they would the trophy dash.
The Southwest, what is it? Southwest Motor and Transmission Rebuilder Miles.
Dude, if I could take this headset off, I'd go get that trophy. Alvin made damn sure that you would win a trophy dash trophy before you couldn't run that Southwestern Motor Mile dash anymore. 4 laps. I mean, and that's the stuff he did because he cared about the racer.
Yeah, I mean, that's the way it was, and that's what the racers loved it, and that's where it ended up working. And what is the old adage? If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
That's right.
And I think that really worked.
Yeah, best of the best. Alvin Stewart, what a legacy that he leaves behind, and still a racing family there. I mean, go out there, support Robert. Man, I was cheering for him this past week, but I knew it was going to be so hard for him to buckle in that car and do what he had to do. But
at least you didn't call him. Congratulating on the W.
Oh man,
that'd have been rough,
dude. I'd have been embarrassed.
That'd have been rough.
That'd have been so embarrassed. We still wouldn't like each other if that had happened. And a big thanks to Robert for checking in. I mean, that took a lot. So thanks so much. Thanks to the folks checking in, and we'll keep you posted on what's happening with that celebration of life. That's going to be one hell of a party.
You're going to be a hell of a party.
That right there is going to be massive, and you'll hear about it right here on the Revved Up Sports Show whenever we get all of that figured out on how that's going to happen. Really good stuff. Really good stuff. So we're going to call it a night, extended version, a little bit longer. Thanks to Robert for checking in. Thanks to Monica Stewart. That little story about Monica. So I remember way back when I didn't tell her this, but way back when at an Enduro, somebody said that's Alvin's daughter. I was young. She was young. And I'm like, she's cute.
Uh-oh.
But that's back when I was shy.
Oh. Okay.
That's back when I was shy. So anyway, rest in peace, Mr. Stewart. Thank you for everything that you did for us. We are ever in your debt. The man, the myth, the legend, as you like to say.
That's right.
Right there. Alvin Stewart. Rest in peace, my friend. Thank you for everything that you did. Guys, we are back next Monday. #Real Race Talk.